Man, this is a special interview. So, in this episode, I'm talking with Dave Owens from RoofCrafters in the southeast part of the US. And it was one of the top interviews that I've ever done, not because of me, but because of Dave. He is a true visionary. He's a business-minded business owner. He is a marketing-minded business owner, which is why I wanted him on the show. Unfortunately, whatever happened with technology, the interview stopped recording after about 20 minutes. So we went for about an hour. We lost like over 40 minutes of just absolute gold nuggets that Dave was dropping and sharing with us. So that's unfortunate. We will actually get him back on. I might want to arrange something in person so we can bring even more value to you as the audience. But we were able to grab the first 20 minutes of this interview and dive into a little bit of Dave's mindset, background, how he approaches business, their team, what trajectory they're on as far as growing and building their revenue department, as he calls it, which is something I've never heard before, but it makes a ton of sense. So enjoy this shortened, abridged episode that we have here on the Nailed It show for you guys. And drop a comment at the end. Let us know what questions you have for Dave, what more topics you want me to explore the next time that Dave and I hop on the mics and hit record and get going with this, because I want to make sure that we're bringing the absolute most value, answering your specific questions, and helping everyone win. So enjoy this episode with Dave Owens of RoofCrafters. What's going on, everyone? I am pumped to be here with Dave Owens, the CEO, owner of RoofCrafters in the Southeast US. And I wanted to invite Dave on because he is someone that connected with on social media through a couple people, Mike Claudio being one of them. And Dave and his team have really built a solid brand, a really solid company. They're building leaders, they're growing. And I heard him on Mike Claudio's podcast recently, and I was like, man, I'd love to get this guy on. Love to have him just kind of pour into the audience a little bit and, inspire some others out there. So excited to dive in here. What's going on, my buddy?
Hey, what's happening, man? Let me clarify really quick, though. I'm not the CEO of RoofCrafters. The CEO is Nikki Corson, right? I'm just a consultant and visionary leader for RoofCrafters. She runs the show, right? Which is an interesting story, right? Because that allows me to operate in the space that I am, and I'm not focused on operations. I'm not focused on permits. I'm not focused on production. I'm focused in marketing now, right? So that's a beautiful thing about that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, thanks for clarifying that. So let's dive into that. So Nikki's the CEO, you're the visionary. How, talk about that structure. Are you guys following like EOS traction and everything like that? Or like what's the business structure look like? So,
roofing in its whole, we are generally, us roofers are generally barbaric, right? Even now, and it's fixing to be 2022, we're barbaric as shit, right? So I was barbaric, you know what I mean? I was operating all 5 boxes, right? Marketing, sales, operations, production, and I was doing all the hiring and firing and recruiting. And so when Nikki came in 2014, 15, that changed the whole dynamics of RoofCrafters. I mean, she structured the company, she created departments, created systems and processes, and it just allowed us to really get focused on our individual departments and build the back end of everything, so we could be prepared to grow and scale.
All right, right on. So I know you've got a lot of experience in the industry and whatnot. Like when you brought her on, was it intentional? Like, hey, I know that I need to kind of delegate and elevate, or we need to split up duties, or we need to, it can't just be the Dave show anymore. Like, what was the thinking behind that move?
Well, yeah, because right, and I talked to a lot of other contractors in this in the space, and from me, I've been in the business for 28 years, and I've had partners, and I've had ups and downs, and we've been through that. So we reach a place where we reach a place that's our ceiling, right? When we reach that place, you're done. You're in a total state of chaos if you don't learn something new and get past that place. For me, that was at $13 million, right? In 2011, $13 million was that place. And I, it was just total chaos. And I just realized that that I wasn't going to be able to get past that. You know what I mean? Operating the way I was, trying to be involved and run everything, right? And trying to have my hands and making decisions in every single department. Every contractor that I've met coming up, we're all like doing the marketing, we're doing the sales. Most of us are sales. Most of us are sales and then or production, and just having to handle all the boxes. You are limited yourself in your growth. We actually hold ourselves back from from being able to grow by trying to be in every single box. That's the biggest thing about bringing her coming in and like restructuring the entire company. That just allowed us to like really get our back end stuff straight. And then we have people now, we bring people in to focus specifically in those departments.
Right on. Okay, awesome. So 2011, I'm just taking notes down here. 13 million, it's total chaos. You're like, man, like what got me here is not what's going to get us to the next level. So need to build in some structure, some people and whatnot. We are recording this at the end of 2001. The end of 2021. So 10 years ago, you kind of made that decision. Where's the business at now? Can you give us a snapshot of RoofCrafters?
Yeah, well, this is the thing I want to give you. I'm going to give your audience this. We're a $65 million roofing company, right? And this is the most important thing that I learned is if you are listening and you have a business, and I don't care where you're at $5 million, you're at $10 million, and you want to build a $20 million company, you want to build a $10 million company, you want to build a $50 million company. One of the most important things that I learned is you have to operate from what you want to build. If you're a 5 million and you want to build a $20 million company, you have to make $20 million hires. You have to make $20 million decisions now. You have to make those decisions right now. You can't make $5 million decisions just because you're a $5 million company. You will stay at $5 million for years. You'll be stuck right there, 5, 6, 7. You'll be staying right there for a long period of time. You have to make where you're going. You have to make those types of hires and decisions.
All right, that makes absolute sense. It sounds like that's wisdom that you are giving, having gone through those experiences. So there's a $5 million company right now listening to this. They're getting fired up. They love your passion. They're like, all right, Dave, I get it. How do I know? I want to be at 20. Like, how do I know what hires I need to make at 20, or how do I know what I need to be doing or decisions I need?
Bro, that's a great question. This is the thing. You want to first hire your leaders. If you want to go to $20 million, you need a leader in every single box. You don't need to be hiring sales reps. You don't need to be hiring somebody to do the production. You don't need to be hiring somebody to keep your book straight. You need to hire leaders in these boxes first, right? So when you put your leaders in place, and this is the thing, you hire the leader. We don't necessarily hire the leader and make the person the leader. Let's take the sales. Let's break down sales. We hire a sales rep. We know we're hiring a leader. They come in and they earn the leadership position. They come in as a sales rep and they become the leader. But we know they're leaders. We're looking at their assessment scores, right? And we know that they have leadership capabilities. So now we nurture them. We bring them up. We get them to buy into our culture. We get them to buy into our company. We get them to buy into our vision and raise them up to the leadership position, right? You need to bring them on as fast as you can. Like, you need to bring those people on now and nurture them up and level them up into the leadership position if you want to grow your company to a scale and grow your company at a high rate.
All right, that makes sense. I'm going to keep grilling you on this. So you're 5 million, you want to be at 20 million, you want to hire that leader, you want to develop leaders, but you've only grown your company to 5 million a year. So you don't necessarily know how to grow leaders to, for a $20 million company. So what do you recommend there? How do people tap into that knowledge of what they need to do in the future?
So, man, you asking some really good questions. So, Joseph, me and you, right? You have a team, I have a team, right? We are only going to be able to lead our team as as far as we can lead ourselves. So the capacity that me and you can lead ourselves, there's nobody on our team. We're going to have anybody else on our team beyond that capacity. You have to raise the level of yourself in order to attract those leaders onto your team and retain those leaders, because they're not going to follow you. If you're not raising yourself, they're not going to follow you. So you have, that's the first step, is start working on self. The very first self is the very first step in this process is starting to work on self-development.
All right, gotcha. So you've been in the business 28 years, just getting started. Now you've probably played every single role there is to play, and obviously you've developed your own leadership, so you can build leaders under you and within the company. What are some of the things that you've done to work on yourself to develop your own leadership?
I hire coaches and mentors, right? I started, manufacturers, the manufacturers that we have in the business, they do a really good job at, because they know we're barbaric and we're like dinosaurs, and they do a really good job at putting on events. I mean, and I'm going back years. They were putting on these events, and Joseph, back then I used to go to those events, and you could cut the animosity and the ego. You could cut it with a knife that was in those rooms. There was nobody willing to like help each other and share and just help each other level up in the markets. And so, we have access to information now, and that's changed now, right? And so, I started hiring, coaches and mentors, and that was the beginning. And then I continue to read. I'm on like 87 books this year. I read 75 last year. I read 65 the year before that. I mean, so it's and I don't, I'm not reading Peter Pan and Disney books, right? I'm not reading The Cat in the Hat. Even though there's some good psychology in those books, but I'm not reading those types of books, right? So read leadership books, read marketing books, read sales books, read books that will help you speak to other people and understand other people as well.
All right, yeah. I mean, so much comes down to communication. That's so key, and yeah, that was the answer I was kind of getting at, because it's like, we have our own capacity, we have our own ceiling, and we need to tap into the experience of others and coaches, mentors, masterminding with other roofing companies, getting to know some other owners that might be at that level where you want to get. We're gonna make mistakes, right? But I always say, like, life is too short to make all the mistakes that we need to make on our own to get to where we want to go. So we need to be able to kind of, shortcut a little bit, not shortcut, but, leverage the experience of others to minimize some of those mistakes. That's been true in your case, I see?
Well, what I found that it compacts time, right? So we want to try to figure out everything, right? That's that barbaric shit. We get going and we're like, oh, I got to figure that out. You get to the next stage and you're like, well, okay, what do I got to do to get to the next stage? And it's like, I'm not going to reach out to Joseph to figure this out. I'm going to figure it out myself, right? That's the ego, right? It's like, I'm just going to figure this out. I got too much pride and ego to ask for help. So we just, it just comes down to, reaching out and asking for help. And when you pay for that and you get around people that will mentor and coach you, you can really compact time. You can really compact time, because like me, you get to speak with me, and I've made a lot of mistakes, right? I started scaling and operating in the dark. That was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, right? You make money, you have money, right? I'm in a state of abundance, and you go to scale the company and build, and you're in the dark, right? I've operated in the state of dark. And when I talk to other roofing contractors or other contractors, I'll be honest, most of us operate in the dark, right? We don't really know what our true overhead is. We don't really know what our true profit margins are, and what happens when you go to scale at a high rate. You add on vehicles, you add on salaries, you add on things, and your profit margin slowly deteriorates. Where like in my case, I was able to save an abundance amount of money at where I was operating, and then when we go to scale, it was gone. And so, just 3 years ago, when I started building a leadership team and really scaling, I found myself $2.1 million in the rear, like at this time of the year. And I had to dig out of that. Like that's from operating in the dark. So that's like, You got to track and know your numbers. You have to know where you're at. Mandatory.
I agree. Actually, I'm going through that right now, and I realized like this year that as a business owner, I've been operating in the dark a little bit more than I want to. And so Q4, one of my big rocks was to focus on becoming more financially literate about the numbers in our business. So reading a few books, Profit First is one of them, and that's what I'm looking at.
Great
Like we're
book.
looking to, yeah, awesome. I'm reading it now. I got to do all the things that he outlines and actually do the work. But we're looking to grow 3 or 4x in 2022. And I know that our numbers aren't dialed in enough, and I don't have the financial literacy that I need in order to do that, because I don't want to grow revenue and obviously experience that situation where you're not profitable, or you're just, there's too much chaos. So I think self-awareness is key. It's like what gaps do I have, like what am I strong at, what are my weaknesses, and then who can I get around that can help, or that I can learn from.
That's exactly right. Great book. Who Not How, right? It's a great book to read. Who Not How, right?
Who
So
Not How, is that one of your tops?
it's a really good book, right? You don't got to figure out all the how if you get the who, right? If you get the who, right? Let's go right into marketing. If you get the who, you ain't got to figure out the how, because the who will do it for you, right? The who will teach you or do it for you. So it's a really powerful book. Who Not How.
All right, I love that. I don't know if I definitely haven't read it. I don't know if I've heard of it, but wrote it down. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
ask for it for Christmas. So yeah, you mentioned marketing, Dave, and you've worn every hat there is to wear in the company. And so tell us about like why you kind of gravitate toward marketing, and that's what you like to focus on.
Well, I started off knocking doors when I was 12 years old, and I mean, when I say knocking doors by myself, I was by myself knocking doors, just hustling all over a pair of shoes. And so, I fucking hated knocking doors, man. I did it and I hated it, especially because I started off cutting grass. So I would like grab my lawnmower in a gallon of two of gas, and I would go in the neighborhood because we were poor, and so and I wanted some really nice shoes to go back to school with. And my mother sat me down and said, "Hey, you can have anything you want in this world. You know what I mean? The things that you do around the house, there's people that live in this neighborhood that will pay you to do it." So I went to work. I grabbed the lawnmower and I went out, and I was really good at it. And I got several pairs of shoes. But I just fucking hated it, man. I hated going up there, knocking on the door. Don't know who's there. I'm intruding. Now we understand it's a pattern interrupt. And so I just, when I started the roofing business, I just didn't want to be a door knocker. And so I didn't want to run that type of operation. So I started leaning into branding, marketing. How can I get that? We know that people have the need. So now how can I attract those people to me? So I have really warm appointments that I can go to. And so I just leaned into that, and I did fairly decent with it, and it's always been something I'm passionate about. When the phone was ringing, when I was getting the leads, that was something that I was very passionate about. I knew if I could get the leads, that I could close them, and it just kind of like progressed, right? My brother gifted me a website, and I'll never forget. He called me. My birthday's June 11th, and he called me and he said, "Yo, man, I got you a birthday present. You need to go to your email." And back then, you had to call me to get me to check my email, right? So I go and check my email, and it's a domain. It's roof-crafters.com, because RoofCrafters was taken. Some guy in Texas had it. So he went out and got the domain. I was like, "What the fuck am I going to do with this?" You know what I mean? Like, what do you want? What do you want me to do with this? And so he had a cool little like Tonka truck on it, and it had a backhoe, and it was flashing under construction. The website was under construction, and the dump truck would back up, and it would load dirt in the back, and it was like the website was being built. I was like, "What is this going to do for me?" And it's just from there. I kept leveling up. I kept leveling that up, and leaned into that. So yeah, I became really, honestly, I really became passionate about it. And I've had lulls, Joe. I would go and I would produce so many fucking leads I couldn't run them, and I'll be like, "Holy shit, how am I going to run all these leads?" And not just myself, a sales team. And I would leave that alone, and then the leads would fall off, and then I wouldn't be focusing on the marketing. I wouldn't be focusing on positioning, or focusing on branding. I would just be focusing on operations and production, doing the jobs. So there was ups and downs in that cycle, right? And now
Yeah.
it was up and downs in that cycle, and then I realized how much, and it took like having Nikki come into the business and me being able to solely focus on marketing and not focus. I haven't sold in 5 years. My last year in sales, I did $4.3 million myself. I haven't
Wow.
sold in 5 years now, right? And so I'm not in sales anymore. I'm not focusing in sales. I got out of the sales box. I went over to production and got all the production stuff straight, and I got out of the production box, and now I'm over here in the marketing box of the company. And I'm just consultant. Like we have a marketing team.
Okay, cool. A few things I want to unpack there. Yeah, you mentioned or you alluded to like that revenue roller coaster where, especially with small companies where the owner's doing a lot, wearing a lot of hats. All right, I'm gonna go drum up business, do some marketing, generate leads, got a whole bunch. Now I got to work on producing and ignore marketing altogether. And then you get done building those jobs and you're like, oh shit, my pipeline's dried up. I got to go back to marketing again. So that's so common. And one of the challenges in marketing in the contracting industry is just simply being consistent, right? Like you see a lot of companies in Q1, hitting their marketing hard. They get all excited. They have the money. They have the time to do some marketing. And then, March, April, May hits, and then they stop marketing and they don't have that consistency that they need to actually grow their business. Is that's something that you experienced?
I think that's a cycle. I see that pattern as well, and I think that, and I can speak from experience, because what happens is I market, I build the campaigns, the leads start coming in, we're running them, and then when we have an overfill, when we start getting more than the capacity that we can run, that creates anxiety. I have to go out and find new people, and now I'm building jobs. And there's a lot of shit going on when that happens, right? Especially when you're producing, millions of dollars. There's a lot going on, and you're like, okay, well, I'll just not focus on the marketing. I didn't turn it off. I just stopped putting the energy into the marketing and didn't stay consistent. And so that's that cycle, and you break off the consistency, and then of course the leads start dropping off and all that. It doesn't mean the revenue goes down necessarily, because in the contracting space, if your production's dialed in, you're working at a 40-50% referral, right? So we stay at that. I track that number, and we stay at that year over year. And so it's not necessarily the revenue goes down, but that's the place, Joe, that like if we stayed consistent and we had the rest of the systems and processes in place, we can add sales reps to run the leads, and we can add production, and we can keep moving it further down further. We can scale at that point. But if you don't, you get in a state of chaos. That's that state where you reach that state of chaos, and now you can't focus on what we need to focus on.
Yeah, totally. So you said like, hey, if you're consistent with that, then you can go out and hire sales reps and you're not in that state of chaos. And I think that ties into what you said earlier a few minutes ago, where you sold 4.3 million in a year by yourself as an owner. Mm-hmm. And so whether someone's selling 4.3 or 1.3 or whatever it is, I think there's so much resistance with owners saying, man, I'm not going to, like, I can't, I'm actually being detrimental to the business by staying in sales. I need to elevate to, leadership, marketing, whatever it is. But I think a lot of owners don't do that because they don't have that predictable lead flow or those systems to be able to generate leads if they're not out there, hustling themselves, right?
It was one of the hardest decisions I've had to make as a business entrepreneur. It was one of the hardest decisions because I'm looking at it going 4.3. I got 5 men underneath me. Back then I had 5 underneath me, and I'm going, shit, man, what am I going to do for revenue? And because we have to surrender. This is a state of like, you have to completely surrender and then go, okay, I'm not the only one that can do this, right? Because your ego goes, I'm the best and I can do this and nobody can do as good as me and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little more later, but like we listen to those voices, right? When we were kids, they used to tell us if you hear voices, people that hear voices were crazy, right? Right? Did you hear that? Because that's what I heard when I was growing up. Like, if you're hearing voices, you're crazy. And I was like, damn, that dude's hearing voices. He must be crazy. But we all hear voices, right? And it's which ones we going to choose to listen to, right? We can listen to the ego, or we can listen to that other voice. And we have that opportunity. That's that unlearning stuff. We have to unlearn some of the stuff that we learned in the past and really like surrender to move forward, right? And so I had to surrender. That was a big thing, to surrender, to move it forward. I had to surrender that sales and that role in sales and all that relationship and all that socialness that you do in sales, all that face to face communication and all those people picking colors and all those people, I'm designing roofs for. We do 50-50 residential commercial. I'm their go-to person. I have to surrender that and be willing to push those people to my sales team so I can move the company forward.
Yeah, that's a mature decision making. Like that's good self awareness, really good self awareness. Really, you have to have some confidence. I'm sure it was scary, leaving that void of 4.3. How quickly did you make that up, or when was it that you made that decision, and then like how long was it before you're like, all right, this was the right decision because now I'm elevated, I'm doing these higher level activities in the business.
Oh man, that was literally, I made the decision and started quarter 4 5 years ago, and brought on 5 new sales reps, hired 5 reps. My first sales rep, I sold one of the first sales reps sold 3.3 million his first year. And
Okay.
so, but I didn't know he was going to sell 3.3. How do you know that, right? And so I made the decision. It's like October. I'm like, okay, I'm going to bring on these new reps, and I'm going to start pushing everything to them so I can go do the other things that I need to go do, right? And so that's what that was a tough decision, man, to go through that. And if you're in that space, man, I feel for you. You know what I mean? Any owner that's selling right now, and it's mandatory. This is the other thing. You cannot, as a business owner, stay in that box and progress your company. It's too much. You can't. I can speak for it. It's too many. It's too many conversations. It's too many text messages. It's too many emails. It's too much messenger. It's too many conversations. Too many collecting checks. It's too much work to operate as in the sales box and lead your team, lead your entire company to the vision that you have for it.